spoilers for the books and the movies. So last month, I went to see Jurassic World Rebirth, and throughout it, I kept noticing plot points from Jurassic Park Lost World, the book. The dinosaurs having genetic engineering flaws to the point where it actually made it easier, relatively, for the main characters to just kind of hide and run away from them. The living complex with convenience stores still drawing power off of a geothermal energy source for the lab workers. The main characters finding electric and computer cable tunnel to an abandoned InGen boathouse with still working motorboat that they ultimately escape on in the end. And also, to kind of a lesser degree, the candy bar wrapper and the pushing off of the boat scene and later dispute about it. And when I learned that the same guy, Kep, had adapted the first two books into the first two movies, I kind of wondered if maybe these were plot points he wanted to include, but there wasn't time. So I thought I'd revisit the book. I'd read both books back when the films came out, but I guess I'd forgotten the first was a reiterating of Frankenstein, where Victor Frankenstein, or John Hammond, backed up by university professors and family money, or genetic researcher, silent partners, and corporate investment money, use human and other animal parts, or dinosaur and other animal DNA strands to create an awe-strikingly monstrous man or awe-strikingly monstrous dinosaur. Except it doesn't matter how ingeniously man stitches together organs and limbs or pieces of DNA together, man will always lack that which is exclusively for God or the natural order to confer, thereby causing a life form to be more than the sum of its parts, and thus belong to and able to function progressively, ongoingly upon God's earth, or the natural world, as it were. And trying to force artificially created, composited life will only get innocent people killed as well as yourself, Victor Frankenstein and John Hammond, with the monster or the dinosaurs supposedly dying by fire in the end. Except at the end of the first book, Hammond is eaten by his own dinosaurs. And at the end of the first movie, he's still alive and escaping on a helicopter and staring wistfully at his amber staff. If only my life could have been as grand as my dreams. Just kind of tragically, I guess. It's supposed to be what it's supposed to be. Then in the second movie, he is still this insanely wealthy old man convalescing in his mansion, being visited by his grandkids, being interviewed by the news for the final wise words of the story, so he's still socially respected. In the second book, InGen, his company, has filed, been completely gutted by the investors, and Hammond's completely forgotten. The original investors, to protect themselves, have renewed and extended the NDs that Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, and Dr. Malcolm were working under. Grant and Sattler, they accomplished this through giving them lucrative funding for their future digs and research. Malcolm, by paying his hospital bills, which he had from the dinosaurs on their island, which doesn't seem quite fair, does it? But who can fight a lengthy litigation battle from a hospital bed? Anyway, second book opens with Malcolm giving a presentation at a university where he has applied chaos theory to try to explain extinction, basically arguing that an extinction level event, the most commonly thought one, like the meteor, was insufficient to explain all of the dinosaurs disappearing. And his theory is that it must have been some flaw in their adaptive and self-organizing behavior, that they could not cope with the radically changed landscape of the event afterwards. It wasn't the meteor strike itself. And he's interrupted by a paleontologist named Levine, who points out that his application of this theory then aligns with Lost World scenario. Lost World scenario is a real thing in paleontology, and it essentially argues that the Chicxulub meteor, I know I butchered that, apologies, was insufficient to explain the total and complete disappearance of the whole dinosaur phyla, especially when the majority of dinosaurs were below 25 kilos. So they were small enough to shelter and survive and scavenge and adapt and move on, but they all disappeared. And also because, like, complex Triassic period, an earlier period, animals are still alive today. So, like, it's not a meteor. The meteor hit the planet, and killed all the dinosaurs. Isn't really a sound explanation. And so, Lost World scenario posits that following that event, the dinosaurs had to, like, hyper specialize, or there was something hyper specialized about their physiology that can't be told by the fossil record, and the meteor radically changed the landscape. So they had to go to just the most remote locations that haven't been completely explored yet. And so paleontologists haven't encountered them yet. And Levine's a real advocate for this scenario. Malcolm calls him deluded. And Levine says, so there's no truth to the park rumors, because in his searching for a lost world, Levine has heard the reported sightings from the Costa Ricans of the Procob sognathids, the tiny scavengers that made it to the mainland from the park, and he's heard rumors about the actual park itself from family members of people who worked there, or died there, or maybe survived there. And Malcolm says, no, there's no truth to that. And so Levine is happy by this. It means that these reported sightings indicate a true, naturally arisen and perpetually survived from the original time, from the Cretaceous, lost world that he's going to look for. And he asks Malcolm, when I mount my expedition to Costa Rica to try to substantiate these sightings, do you want to be part of my team? Malcolm says yes. Shortly after this, Levine is caught driving 120 miles per hour in a 15 mile per hour school zone, given ordered to teach a science class at the school as community service, where he meets and kind of takes under his wing the two most advanced kids in the class and most enthusiastic about science, Kelly and Arby. And a large part of the reason he does this is because Dodson, from the first book and the first film, has been having him followed. Dodson believes that Levine will lead him to Site B eventually. Even though Levine doesn't know about Site B, Dodson, through espionaging shenanigans, has found like hints and reports and emails from InGen and knows there was a Site B. He just doesn't know where it is. So he thinks Levine might lead him to it. So he's having him followed. So, but the private investigator doesn't know that Levine has taken these kids under his wing. So Levine sends them on errands for him. Then a dinosaur carcass washes up in Costa Rica. Levine goes to find it. He is not allowed to take pictures of it, and the Costa Rican officials incinerate the carcass. Levine's contact there, who told him about it, Dr. Gutierrez, says it's because the government's incredibly worried about a new strain of encephalitis that is infecting people there, and they have identified these animals, these unknown species of animals, of reptiles, as a vector. Levine dismisses this out of hand, and Gutierrez insists they're sure it's a vector. And to which Levine argues, that's all the more reason to find out where these animals are coming from. Gutierrez tells him they've searched the whole countryside. They've even searched the chain of islands off the coast, which gets Levine kind of looking into the islands. He decides he knows which one and forgoes his flight home and goes straight to the island. He hires a guide to take him out by boat named Diego and guide him there. Diego gets eaten. Levine calls his team back in California, comprised of Malcolm, Dr. Thorne, and Eddie Carr, to come and help him. Thorne calls Sarah Harding.
Reduced as a character during the script adaptation from book to film.
Sarah Harding in the book is not another paleontologist. She is a field biologist who researches large pack hunting predators in Africa, hyenas and lions mainly. And she is in Africa when Thorne calls, and she kind of has that classic moment of, I'm not going to go, he's my ex. Okay, I'm on my way. I'll find you. Somehow on this unpopulated Costa Rican island after traveling all across Africa and flying across the ocean. In a shocking twist, Kelly and Arby sneak along too. While searching Isla Sorna, or Isla Gemito, for Levine, Malcolm, Thorne, and Eddie find the Site B lab and workers' living complex. And Malcolm immediately tells Thorne and Eddie everything about Hammond and the dinosaurs and InGen and the park and the fatalities that happened at the park. And he never specifically says, or it's never specifically said, But I do kind of wonder if this was Malcolm's motivation for joining Levine's team, like to potentially encounter an opportunity outside of the bounds of the ND to disclose all of this to somebody, to other people, so they know. Which is kind of interesting, going back to the Frankenstein aspect of this, because it would kind of liken Malcolm to Walton. Walton, at the end of Frankenstein, is like the only person who knows this whole story and who's seen the monster with his own eyes, and he writes all of this down and he sends it in letters back home so other people will know of it. And also, part of the reason why I think that is because in the book The Lost World, he has kind of specialized his work too. In the first book, he was just a mathematician who would apply chaos theory to any complex system. And he was approached by Engine, hey, if we made this park, how would it go? In The Lost World now, he is he is just applying it to things that will either directly or tangentially involve dinosaurs somehow. The same way he was applying chaos theory to try to explain extinction, he's also using it to try to explain evolution, going back as far as the dinosaurs up till now. And he's also seen helping the University of Berkeley, they are making a dinosaur exhibit, which he's helping them design it so that it's like the daily life, the daily struggle of dinosaurs. So anyway, they meet up with Levine, and they're all ticked that he raced off on his own. Levine argues, I had to. The local government's got this idiotic health protocols, and they're destroying the specimens. Also, I didn't come out here alone. I had a guy named Diego who got eaten. It was very inconvenient for me. They start setting up the equipment, the trailers, the cameras. There are also cameras abandoned in the InGen Site B that are still working, and they're using those too, but they're setting up their own cameras to link up to their own satellites for when they leave. And the high hide. Sarah, meanwhile, has arrived on the mainland and is trying to get transportation out to whichever island they're on. But she is told by the official there that the helicopter that took Malcolm, Thorne, and Eddie and the kids out to the island has already been chartered and is already in a different city, and the only boat for hire out there, operated by his cousin Diego, went out the other day and has not come back yet. She starts looking into hiring a private boat to take her out there, and in doing so, she runs into Dodson, who's on his way out there. When Dodson realizes who she is, Dodson along with his crew, King and Basilton. When Dodson realizes who she is, he invites her along, and then midway out, not midway out there, is closer to the island actually, but he pushes her. He intentionally, deliberately pushes her over the railing. He doesn't. It's not like Dodds and Teresa, where he just gets this look like, oh, if you were out of the way, things would go a lot easier for me. So I'm not going to help you. He deliberately pushes her over, but it does remind me because she survives and she comes for him later on. But more on that later on. Levine's now having his team cut fronds and tie them to the high hide for extra camouflage, extra from the dinosaurs, so the dinosaurs won't find it and mess with it. He doesn't care that this is all genetically engineered, that these are fake composited dinosaurs that were only introduced to this island within less than a decade. He thinks that they're still approximate enough. He will be able to observe enough and get enough of a data set of their behaviors to kind of try to explain extinction. Even when Malcolm points out, hey, there are no fully grown adults at all, just a few matured adolescents, some juveniles, and very few infants. Levine just brushes that off. He's still staying in the high hide to observe. They're all going to go back to the trailer to wait for Sarah and to have lunch. Levine, no, I'm not going. I've got candy bars here. Eats his candy bar. Chucks it over the railing of the high hide. More on that later too. Sarah, who's washed up in a riverbed, climbs out and starts trying to find Malcolm, Thorne, Eddie, and Levine. But along the way, she spots a pack of raptors who are hunting, and she decides she's going to follow them and observe their hunt. And maybe I'll just read a little bit of that.
She chased the tiger dinosaurs up a hill, but even before she reached the crest, she could tell from the snarls and growls that they had already brought an animal down. At the crest, she looked down on their kill, but it was like no kill she had ever seen in Africa. On the Seronera Plain, a kill site had its own organization, which was quite predictable, and in a way was almost stately. The biggest predators, lions or hyenas, were closest to the carcass, feeding with their young. Farther out, waiting their turn, with the vultures and marabou storks, and still farther out, the jackals and other small scavengers circled warily. After the big predators finished, the smaller animals moved in. Different animals ate different parts of the bodies. The hyenas and vultures ate bones. The jackals nibbled the carcass clean. This was the pattern at any kill, and as a result there was very little squabbling or fighting around the food. But here she saw pandemonium, a feeding frenzy. The fallen animal was thickly covered with striped predators, all furiously ripping the flesh of the carcass, with frequent pauses to snarl and fight with each other. Their fights were openly vicious. One predator bit the adjacent animal, inflicting a deep flank wound. Immediately, several other predators snapped at the same animal, which limped away, hissing and bleeding, badly wounded. Once at the periphery, the wounded animal retaliated by biting the tail of another creature, again causing a serious wound. A young juvenile, about the size of the others, kept pushing forward, trying to get at a bit of the carcass. But the adults did not make room for it. Instead, they snarled and snapped in fury. The youngster was frequently obliged to hop back nimbly, keeping its distance from the razor-sharp fangs of the grown-ups. Harding saw no infants at all. This was a society of vicious adults. As she watched the big predators, their heads and bodies smeared in blood, she noticed the crisscross pattern of healed scars on their flanks and necks. These were obviously quick, intelligent animals, yet they fought continually. Was that the way their social organization had evolved? If so, it was a rare event.
Levine has left the high hide to follow a herd of Parasaurolophosors that are that have left the marsh, the browsing areas around the lake edge, where they were all eating and drinking with the apatosaurs. They've all, one of them trumpeted, and they all got up and started marching into the woods. Levine climbs down to follow them and observe them, and he observes that they are latrine animals. The leader of the herd makes some signal, and they all leave where they eat to pee and poop, basically. And it's thought that this is to clearly mark their territory as collectively as a herd, like more strongly than they could individually. Levine is fascinated by this, and he's saying in his inner monologue, he's like, he knew that some modern herd animals like deer and rhino did this, but he had never encountered any paleontologist that ever thought dinosaurs did this. And this is something that drives me crazy about both of the books and all of the movies, because they all have some moment, some character, some real scientist character who's had nothing to do with the company or the genetically engineering the dinosaurs and putting them out there. But they encountered them, and they're like, oh my God, this was so reckless and irresponsible. But since there are dinosaurs in front of me, I've got to study them because there are dinosaurs in front of me. And they always know that there's so much DNA piecing the dinosaurs together to the point where they can change their sex. Another thing, no paleontologist thinks the dinosaurs had this ability. So if it can change them that much, is it not possible that some of that instinct is composited instinct? It's not the same instinct. I don't know, but anyway. While he's observing them, he gets bitten by Compy, and he returns to his hide. Sarah makes it to the trailer. She tells everyone Dodson and his crew are on the island. They start using the cameras to try to find them. She also adds to their earlier observations about the island seemingly fundamentally flawed. She tells them about the raptors' hunt and how completely disorganized their behavior all seemed, to the point of something's wrong. She also says there are way too many carnivores on this island for just how many herbivores would naturally be able to support them. There's likely a false food source. Then by combing through old lab reports that they've taken from Site B, they find out that they were feeding the baby dinosaurs, the hatchlings that they were hatching en masse, in massive numbers, to try to get perfect babies to send to the park lab kind of tour ride. They were feeding them. They were present. A lot of them were presenting with a disease. They didn't know. The geneticists didn't know what it was, but they were getting sick. Some of them were dying in infancy, and they didn't know why. And by combing through that, Sarah and Malcolm read that they were feeding them nutrients extracted from sheep meat. And sheep meat contains prions. So Malcolm and Sarah understand this instantly. Prions can infect animals and people. It can cause diseases such as scrappy mad cow disease and koru. So they know all the dinosaurs are sick. They locate Dodson and his crew, who have raided the Maiasaur nest and are on their way to the Tyrannosaur nest. The raiding of the nest scenes are really awful. Any sympathy that I kind of had for King and Basilton, just for like Dodson's kind of callous, kind of cruel, manipulative, lying, was gone after this scene. Anyway, King gets eaten. Basilton gets eaten, and King and Dodson get separated. Crichton also retcons his earlier, their visual acuities based on movement.
Why did Dodson just stand there like that? That's not the way to act around predators. You get caught around lines, you make a lot of noise, wave your hands, throw things at them, try to scare them off. You don't just stand there. He probably read the wrong research paper, Malcolm said, shaking his head. There's been a theory going around that Tyrannosaurs can only see movement. A guy named Broxton made casts of Rex brain cases and concluded that Tyrannosaurs had the brain of a frog. The radio clicked. Levine said, Roxton is an idiot. He doesn't know enough anatomy to have sex with his wife. His paper was a joke. What paper? Thorne said. The radio clicked again. Roxton, Levine said, believed that Tyrannosaurs had a visual system like an amphibian, like a frog. A frog sees motion but doesn't see stillness. But it is quite impossible that a predator such as Tyrannosaur would have a visual system that worked that way. Quite impossible. Because the most common defense of prey animals is to freeze. A deer or something like that. It senses danger and it freezes. A predator has to be able to see them anyway. And of course a tyrannosaur could. Over the radio, Levine snorted with disgust. It's just like the other idiotic theory put forth by Grant a few years back, that a tyrannosaur could be confused by a driving rainstorm, because it was not adapted to wet climates. That's equally absurd. The Cretaceous wasn't particularly dry. And in any case, tyrannosaurs are North American animals. They've only been found in the US or Canada. Tyrannosaurus rex lived on the shores of the Great Inland Sea, east of the Rocky Mountains. There are lots of thunderstorms on mountain slopes. I'm quite sure Tyrannosaurus saw plenty of rain, and they evolved to deal with it. So, is there any reason why a tyrannosaur might not attack somebody? Malcolm said. Yes, of course, the most obvious one, Levine said, which is, if it wasn't hungry, if it had just eaten another animal. Anything larger than a goat would take care of its hunger for hours to come. No, the tyrannosaur sees fine, moving or still.
Levine orders his crew to go out and stop Dodson and King because their interference with the dinosaurs might mess up his observations. Seems particularly crazy to me. They know at least one of those guys has no problem murdering people, and prions or not, they are still tyrannosaurs. But they go out and miss them, but they discover that in raiding the nest, Dodson and crew have broken one of the already hatched tyrannosaur chick's legs. And that chick chomps down on Eddie's boot and won't let go. And he says to Sarah and Malcolm, hey, what do I do about this tyrannosaur baby that won't let go of my boot? And they say, shoot it. Which also seems really crazy to me because they're using extremely potent toxic neurotoxins shot by rifle. So they essentially have rifle rifles, like rifle butts. Like they could just pry the chick's jaws open. And I mean, like, they keep going on about how similar dinosaurs are to birds, and a lot of bird chicks will scavenge off of siblings who have died. So, like, what if they end up killing the healthy chicks that they want to healthy, relatively surviving chicks that they want to study? But it's a moot point anyway because Eddie can't bring himself to do it. He brings the Tyrannosaur baby back to the trailer to see if they can do anything about his leg. They work out a plan. Levine orders everyone but Sarah and Malcolm, who are doing the actual attending to the baby, to join him in the hide because he's afraid the Tyrannosaurs are going to attack to get their baby back. The Tyrannosaurs attack to get their baby back. Malcolm is severely injured again. Sarah saves him, gets him out of the trailer. At which point, a hunting pack of raptors is passing along the game trail underneath the high hide. One of them smells the candy bar wrapper that Levine chucked over the side, and they find the high hide and attack the high hide. I feel like there's an anti-littering message here, but this also kind of reminded me of Rebirth, the candy bar wrapper that shorted out the door. That seems to like enrage so much of the fandom. Like how I've seen so many like comments and posts about like just how stupid and illogical and unrealistic it is that like this highly trained lab technician would just chuck a candy bar wrapper in a lab setting.
The Demon Core was a real sphere of 14 solid pounds of plutonium encased in beryllium that an advanced team of nuclear physicists were experimenting on to assess its weapons potential. And one of them, a man named Slotin, wanted the beryllium case propped slightly open. So he looked around for what was readily available in the lab and picked up a screwdriver and tried to prop the casing open that way. It did not work. Slotin was dead the next day, and everyone else in the lab experienced a dramatic shortening of their lives. A highly educated and trained researcher in the most high-risk lab or research settings can still behave irresponsibly or recklessly.
The raptors eat Eddie. They also ate King, and they run off Arby. Levine, Sarah, Thorne, and Kelly all try to follow and save him. Sarah Harding rides the raptors down on motorcycle.
Whatever, Owen.
They all get to the raptor nest, which the raptors have situated at the end of a river where the succumbed bodies of the adult herbivores have washed up, and that's the unnatural food supply from which the raptors are scavenging, thus unnaturally increasing their numbers. Anyway, they rescue Arby and they barricade themselves in the nearest building, which is the convenience store for the Site B lab workers.
Doc, she said. We're over here, Thorne said, with Arby. By the moonlight filtering in through the windows, she could see the store looked very much like an abandoned roadside convenience stand. There was a glass-walled refrigerator of soft drinks, the cans obscured by mold on the glass. A wire rack nearby held candy bars and Twinkies, the wrappers speckled green, crawling with larvae. In the adjacent magazine rack, the pages were curled with headlines 5 years old. To one side were rows of basic supplies: toothpaste, aspirin, suntan lotion, shampoo, combs, and brushes. Alongside this were racks of clothing: t-shirts and shorts, socks, tennis rackets, bathing suits, and a few souvenirs: keychains, ashtrays, and drinking glasses. In the center of the room was a little island with a computer cash register, a microwave, and a coffee maker. The microwave door hung wide. Some animal had made a nest inside. The coffee maker was cracked and laced with cobwebs. "What a mess," Malcolm said.
I so wish they had had some version of this scene in the movie The Lost World. I feel like Jeff Goldblum would have put like a kind of a Betty Davis spin on that line. Or maybe, no, maybe Elizabeth Taylor impersonating Betty Davis spin on that line.
What a dump!
What was I talking about? Okay, so there is a helicopter coming for them in the morning, but it's landing on the opposite side of the island. Sarah goes to try and intercept it. On the way, she's attacked by Dodson, but shoves him into an oncoming T-Rex, who grabs him, takes it back to the nest, and feeds him to its chicks. Sarah misses signaling the helicopter, and it leaves, not having picked them up. She gets back to the convenience store. They get attacked by raptors, also Carnosaurs, whatever. They do absolutely nothing in this book. I don't know why they're in this book. But anyway, Kelly realizes there's a crawl space for the electrical cables and computer cables running right underneath the convenience store and out to the shore, where they find an abandoned InGen boathouse with a motorboat that they managed to escape on. And as they're returning to the mainland, Costa Rica, Levine is crowing about, this perfect lost world that he's found and the observations he's going to make and, the answers he's going to find. And Sarah tells him it's nothing of the kind. It's completely artificially constructed. The predator-prey ratios are all off. All the dinosaurs are sick. And also, animals infected with prions can spread encephalitis to people via bites, at which point Levine completely freaks out. Then, humanity is the real disease upon the earth, says Malcolm. Which, because I can't let go of this Frankenstein Walton digression I've found myself on doing this book review, I find kind of interesting, because just the bleakness of it and the pessimism of it kind of match both Victor Frankenstein and the monster at the end of that book. They're very despairing, and Frankenstein tells Walton, don't follow where we've gone. Don't behave like me. And if Walton did, for whatever reason, even if it was other people need to know all of this, perhaps he would have come to a similarly pessimistic, kind of bleak point of view at the end. So the story is really well written. It unfolds really satisfactorily and really entertainingly. The dinosaurs come off as real living creatures that are behaving and kind of have real personalities, and instead of they're just there. The characters are really interestingly rounded and have discernible personalities too, and good character moments. Malcolm is initially described at the very beginning as really slacking off on his physiotherapy from his injuries from the first book. So he is still injured from the first book too. and he's kind of slacking off on his physiotherapy. He needs a cane quite often. And but after signing on to Levine's team, he really commits himself, and he's bantering with his physiotherapist, and she's like, I never thought I'd see you back here. I thought you'd kind of given up on this. Oh, well, I might have to go rock climbing someday. Kelly and Arby are the two smartest engaged students at the school. So, like, they're friends, and they bond over that, but they also come from quite different socioeconomic tiers from their families. And so that's kind of, there are some kind of uncomfortable moments for both of them, and both of them trying to kind of very gently sidestep around that to get back to where they do bond over the things they do bond over, which is kind of endearing. You believe their relationship and believe them as characters. Sarah, one of my favorite moments of her, besides all of her kind of hero moments, really, of this book. Like, if she hadn't come out there, they'd all freaking be dead. But anyway, when she first finds the trailer after washing up on the riverbed, from having been pushed out over the boat, over the railing of the boat by Dodson, when she first reaches the trailer, she understandably wants a shower. And as she's showering and lathering up her hair, she's described as humming "I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair" from South Pacific, which is cool, like a little musical reference, but also maybe I wasn't still hung up on this man. She'd still be in Africa. She'd still be living her life. But anyway, most of all, though, Dodson, because I love me a good villain, and he is almost like a classic Disney villain, just a little bit, just in his unabashed rottenness. But what I really liked about the way he was written, like everything he does, he gets people to do. It's believable. He works for a company named Bielson. He's not really liked there. He's just we just kind of need this kind of amoral, thuggish guy for when we need things done, but we don't want him taking initiative. And the board chairman is totally mad about all the money he lost bribing Nedry and not getting any dinosaurs, and doesn't want him to be pursuing this anymore. And so he takes him to the kennel where they keep the animals that they test on, and which is getting more and more flack from animal rights advocates. And he says, genetically engineered animals don't have any legal rights. All of that problem we're having with the animal activists will just go away. And so the guy gives him one more chance, even though he was staunchly against it. The scene where he recruits King is really cruel. Also, he's Dodson. He's smart in his own right. Once he knows the island where Site B is on, he gets just basic satellite images, just like ones anyone can find, basically, online, and of that island, and basically from where the plants are trampled and how they're trampled, he figures out where all of the dinosaurs have their nests. Something that Levine and Malcolm have not been able to do. They're planning on it, and they're trying. They're using the cameras and their observations. They're planning on trying to, and they want to, but they haven't. And so I just think it's so lazy with some villains, like in like other books or movies. Like, it's like, no, but you don't trust him. Why are you following him? Like, there's no logical connection. Like, there's no rationale. But in this book, like, even though it's like so obvious that he's such a creep, and a dangerous creep. It is believable that other characters are following him and capitulating to him and working with him. So it does make for a much more entertaining read. What I really, really disliked about this book, there's a gross capitalist kind of overtone. Capitalist, yes. Levine is quite moneyed. He has inherited wealth. But there's a gross colonialist way that Levine acts towards the Costa Rican people and government. He calls them idiotic. He dismisses them. He calls them a banana republic government privately. But it still is the way he thinks. Still is the way he views them, for basically not letting him do whatever he wants to this carcass that's washed up on their shore and is full of disease. When he says to Gutierrez, all the more reason to find out where these things are coming from, he's being completely dishonest and disingenuous. Because finally, at the end, after another Western scientist using lab reports from a Western lab, a completely disgraced and failed lab, but a Western lab reports, yes, they are a vector for encephalitis, and he's accepted that as a fact. He has absolutely no intention of informing the authorities of this huge island that's been secretly filled with these disease-spreading animals right off of their shore, and that has already demonstrated to have infected their people, or even, about Diego, so they can inform his family of their loss. Like, it's just completely brushed off as we picked up a guide there in this third world colony country. Didn't work out. That was unfortunate for us, and it's not significant. It's not treated as significant. No, he's going to get his bite looked at, probably at a Costa Rican hospital, because they're described as having a really good healthcare system, and it's going to be the closest one for him. Then he's going to go back to California and continue to observe his cameras and satellite feed and write about it and publish it whenever he has enough data. And the narrative, the tone of the book is really accepting of this. It presents this as just neutrally moral. Like, these are just inconsequenced decisions and actions for this main character, this one that we're spending the most amount of time with, and is supposed to be happy that he survived. And I find that really upsetting and unsatisfying, frankly.